The urban legend of Mr. Jeepers. I don't even know if Mr. Jeepers was his real name or not, nobody did. We all called him that because of his famous catch line, well Jeepers that'll be a fun time, or well Jeepers you kids look like you're having fun, etc. You see, Mr. Jeepers owned a little amusement park called Wally World. Go-karts, mini-putt, water slides, climbing rocks and a bunch of stuff for little kids. Now you may notice I said owned, past tense. Mr. Jeepers got in a lot of trouble in the mid-90s, why you ask? Well let me tell you. Mr. Jeepers was said to be a sexual predator. At least that's what the cops said, but Jeepers swore hand to God he was innocent, and that he'd never hurt a child. But the cameras in the change rooms tells a different story. Family change room, men's change room, woman's change room, over urinals, over the toilets, over the showers. All in all, police pulled 87 cameras off the property and 15 computer hard drives. I heard from my friend's dad at the time, who was a fireman, that they'd found something like 400 hours worth of kids changing and using the washrooms. Now I'm not saying he did it, I'm not saying he didn't. But one thing for sure, Jeepers disappeared at the end of that summer, and I'm just going off the stories I've been told. So that same father who was a fireman said one night, 8 of the parents got fed up with waiting for the cops to charge Jeepers, and decided vigilante justice would be the best way to handle the Jeepers problem. I know how Nightmare on Elm Street of them. So they went to Jeepers' house, got him to the door, knocked him out with a taser, and took him back to Wally World. This is where some of the stories go a little off the rails. Some say they drowned him in the wave pool slowly over an 8-hour period, by tying his feet and hands to a cinder block, then placing a life vest on him, progressively making the waves lower and higher. Others say they dropped him off the 4-story water slide structure. But the worst one I heard was they did things to Mr. Jeepers with a broomstick and filmed the whole thing, and somewhere the video still exists. I've never seen it, nor do I think I want to. But one thing for sure, Mr. Jeepers was never seen or heard from again. The police didn't do much of a bang-up job looking for him, or his killers either, but that's not the strangest part though. So the 8 parents who disposed, we'll say, of Jeepers died off soon after Jeepers' disappearance. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson were killed in Hawaii by a rogue wave on their sailboat. The Werners died of accidental drowning in their pool together on the same night. The Mackenzies died falling from a water tower, on a drunken dare, 4 stories. I mean, what's the chances of that they fell 4 stories to their death? Last but not least, the Hoffmans. The Hoffmans were a very wealthy family in town, and they owned one of, if not the largest, road construction companies back in the day. They bought Wally World and we're going to tear it down, so in their words people could move on from this terrible tragedy. According to police, there was only one problem. A video was found in the Hoffman's house of Mrs. Hoffman jamming a broomstick down Mr. Hoffman's throat while he slept, killing him, and she was later found tied to a cinder block at the bottom of their pool. The coroner said he never found any defensive wounds of any type, and there was no signs of a struggle in the house according to police. Hell, when the cops got there, after Mr. Hoffman's bloated, rotting corpse had gotten so ripe that neighbors had to call the cops, had said Mr. Hoffman was still laying in bed, blankets over him like he just laid there and let her do it. The video shows the same thing. Apparently Mrs. Hoffman walked up to her husband's side of the bed, his eyes open, and then he opened his mouth. She then forces the broomstick down into his gaping jaw, until he stopped breathing. Then Mrs. Hoffman walks out of the room and a splash is heard in the background. It turned out later that it was 2 of the janitors at Wally World, Mike Milligan and Sean Avery, that had set up all the cameras, and were selling the videos to the highest bidder. Mr. Jeepers' computers had nothing on them, as all the video evidence was found in the janitor's office later on. They both got 20 years for the videos and distribution. Mr. Jeepers got an official apology from the town, and a plaque placed up on Wally World's main gate. Happiest man alive, we miss you Mr. Jeepers, the plaque reads. They reopened Wally World a month ago after 15 years of being closed. Kids say it's not the same, and even parents say there's something off about the place. I took my kids there a few days ago, and I know in the men's washroom where they supposedly defiled Mr. Jeepers, I could have swore I heard Jeepers coming from one of the stalls, but there was no one in there with me.